Deep in the rural outskirts of Pennsylvania, 34-year-old David owned 50 acres of private hunting land. He knew the woods like the back of his hand and often set up motion-activated trail cameras strapped to trees to track the deer population. During the second week of hunting season in 2024, David hiked out to retrieve the SD cards from 3 of his cameras. He brought them back to his cabin, made a cup of coffee, and plugged the first card into his laptop. The first 50 photos were standard: raccoons, a few does, and blowing branches. But the photos from camera 2, located in the deepest part of the property, were different. The timestamp read 2:14 a.m. The infrared flash had captured a figure. It wasn't an animal, it was a person crawling on their hands and knees through the tall grass. They were wearing a dark, oversized raincoat and a crude mask made from a burlap sack with 2 holes cut out for eyes. David felt a chill run down his spine. He clicked to the next photo, taken 30 seconds later. The figure was closer to the camera now, still on all fours, staring directly into the lens. He clicked to the third photo. The figure was standing upright, inches away from the camera. But it was what the person was holding that made David's stomach drop. In the masked figure's hand was a bright orange hunting cap, the exact same cap David had lost in those woods 2 days prior. The person hadn't just been wandering, they had been following David, collecting what he dropped. David immediately packed his truck and left the cabin. He handed the SD card over to the local state troopers. They scoured the 50 acres, but found no trace of the masked crawler. However, they did find David's orange cap, neatly placed right on the front porch of his cabin, completely soaked in mud. Buying abandoned storage units at auction is a popular gamble, but it rarely leads to anything dangerous. Chris, a 28-year-old reseller, won a bid on a large, climate-controlled unit on the edge of town. The facility was an old, sprawling indoor complex with rows of metal corrugated doors. Chris decided to go clear out the unit at 11 p.m. to avoid the daytime heat. The facility was completely deserted, illuminated only by flickering overhead lights. He walked down the long concrete hallway to Unit 404. He cut the facility's lock, rolled up the heavy metal door, and propped it open. The unit was mostly filled with old furniture covered in dust sheets and stacked cardboard boxes. Chris started opening the boxes. They contained ordinary household junk, old dishes, books, and clothes. But at the very back of the unit, sitting alone on a wooden chair, was a black leather photo album. It looked pristine, completely free of dust, unlike everything else in the room. Chris picked it up and opened it. The first few pages were blank. Then, halfway through, there were photographs. They weren't old family pictures. They were printed out on standard printer paper and glued to the pages. The photos were of Chris. There was a picture of him pumping gas a week ago, a picture of him carrying groceries into his apartment, and the final picture was of Chris standing at the storage auction, bidding on this exact unit, taken just 10 hours earlier. A sudden metallic crash echoed through the hallway. Chris spun around. The heavy metal rolling door of Unit 404 had been slammed shut, plunging him into total darkness. He lunged forward and hit the metal door, screaming for help. He tried to slide the latch, but he heard the distinct click of a padlock being secured from the outside. He was trapped. Chris called 911 in a panic. It took the police 20 minutes to arrive and cut the new lock off the door. When they reviewed the facility's security footage, they saw a man in a dark hoodie following Chris down the hallway, waiting for him to go deep into the unit, and then locking him inside. The previous renter hadn't abandoned the unit. He had set a trap, specifically for whoever bought his belongings. Empty swimming pools at night have a naturally eerie atmosphere. The echoing sounds, the smell of chlorine, and the stillness of the water create a sense of isolation. Maya, a 22-year-old college student, worked as a night janitor at a local community recreation center. Her final task every night was to clean the deck around the indoor Olympic-sized pool after the building closed at 10 p.m. It was a Tuesday in early 2025. Maya had locked the front doors, turned off the main lights, and left only the underwater pool lights on. casting a glowing blue reflection across the ceiling. She was mopping near the shallow end when she noticed a pile of soaking wet clothes sitting on the bleachers. A pair of jeans, a gray t-shirt, and sneakers. Maya frowned. The locker rooms had been empty when she checked them. She walked over to the edge of the pool and looked at the water. It was perfectly glass smooth. No ripples, no signs of swimming. She assumed someone had left their clothes behind earlier in the day and forgot them. She went back to mopping. 10 minutes passed. The only sound was the squeak of her mop. Then she heard a soft splash from the deep end. Maya stopped and looked up. The water was rippling violently. She walked cautiously toward the edge of the deep end, which was 12 feet deep. She peered down into the glowing blue water. Sitting cross-legged at the very bottom of the pool was a pale, hairless man. He was completely naked, eyes wide open, staring straight up at her through 12 feet of water. Maya dropped her mop. The man didn't move. He wasn't drowning. He was holding his breath, completely still, just watching her. Maya sprinted out of the pool area, locked the double doors behind her, and called the police from the manager's office. When the police arrived with their flashlights drawn, they found the pool empty. The wet clothes on the bleachers were gone. When they checked the underwater security cameras, they discovered the horrifying truth. The man had been hiding at the bottom of the deep end for over 45 minutes before Maya even entered the room. He had been holding his breath for impossible lengths of time, surfacing silently for air, only when her back was turned, waiting for her to get close to the edge.